Hello everyone! In today's video I am going to share with you my current favorite sourdough bread recipe. And yes, it's time for a new update because I've been perfecting and experimenting with my method all this time. So this one is seriously foolproof and easier than the previous one. So it's great if you're just starting out, but also if you're already quite experienced in sourdough, you might enjoy a slightly different, milder, nuttier taste of this recipe. So the first thing we need, of course, is a sourdough starter. I made this one with 1 tablespoon of old starter plus 200 grams of flour and 200 grams of water. So for this recipe, it's very important not to over ferment the starter. It's ready to use when it grows by around 20 to 30%, definitely no more than 50%. This will allow the yeast to dominate over the lactobacteria and will give your bread lots of oven spring, airy texture, and that mild European flavor. So now I'm adding 200 grams of the starter to a large mixing bowl. And by the way, if you'd like to find out more about all of the tools I use for sourdough baking and why, then watch my original sourdough bread recipe video. I'll try to link it somewhere here. Next, I'm adding 680 grams of warm water. I'll whisk the starter in the water until it's all dissolved. Next, I'm adding 900 grams of strong bread flour and 100 grams of white wheat flour. You can also use regular flour, but just bear in mind that the ratio will change a bit. You'll need less water. I mix everything roughly with a Dutch whisk, sometimes with my damp hand as well, until no loose flour remains on the bottom or on the walls of your bowl. Leave the dough to rest for around 30 minutes. This will give enough time for the flour to absorb the water, which means less kneading and nicer texture. Next, I'm adding 24 grams of fine sea salt and 50 grams of water. The water is just to make sure that the salt gets distributed evenly throughout the dough. Knead using pincer and stretch and fold methods, just like this, until all the water is absorbed and the dough is very soft, smooth, and extremely elastic. It takes me around 5 minutes to get to that point, but if you're just starting out, it might take you up to 10 minutes. Next step is stretching and folding at least 4 times every 30 minutes. And beyond those first 2 hours, you'll need to be very careful not to deflate the dough. So after those first 2 hours, I generally stretch and fold gently once an hour until I feel that the dough is ready for shaping. It will feel very airy, like a sort of like a cushion, and volume-wise, it will have grown by around 20 to 30%. It's very important not to overproof it. I honestly can't stress it enough. It is always better to underproof a little bit than to overproof, because overproofed dough yields bread as flat and hard as a brick, plus way too sour. As you can see, I'm not mentioning times because it will depend on the temperature in your house. So the secret is to follow the dough and to get to know the texture, the smell, the look. You'll know when it's ready for the next step. At the end of the video, I will tell you the timings of all my steps so that you can have a better idea, but for now just focus on watching your dough. Next, shaping. I gently scoop the dough out with my hand, divide it into 2 equal pieces with your dough cutter. Flip each piece so that the floured side is on the work surface. Fold it in half like this and then pre-shape it into a tight ball. It doesn't have to be perfect, it's just to introduce a little bit of tension. Do the same with the other piece. Flour the surface of each piece slightly and cover with a towel. Leave to rest for around 30 minutes. Now take your bannetons and sprinkle them generously with a mixture of all-purpose flour and rice flour. I first sprinkle one and then the other, but you can also mix them together. And you need to be generous or the bread will stick, and trust me, it isn't fun. Next, final shaping. Flour the surface of the dough a little bit again, flip it, flatten it a little bit like this into a sort of rectangular shape, and then stretch one side and fold over. Stretch the opposite side and fold over. Do the same with the remaining 2 sides. You'll end up with a tight, cute parcel. Now flip it and start rolling it like this to create more tension on all sides. Use your thumb and other fingers to push from the bottom. This will create palpable tension on the surface of the loaf, and you'll feel it. Once it's nice and tight, place it in the banneton with the seam side up. Do the same with the other loaf. Place both bannetons in plastic bags and retard in the fridge until the next morning. For me, it's generally around 12 hours. In the morning, switch on the oven at the maximum temperature. Most ovens go to 260 degrees Celsius. Place the Dutch oven in the oven for 20 minutes to preheat it. Once it's ready, take the Dutch oven out of the oven and sprinkle some flour on the bottom. Take the first banneton from the fridge and drop it carefully into the Dutch oven, and don't worry if it falls in awkwardly like mine did, it will still look good. Slash the top with a sharp razor or a very sharp and thin knife. I either make 3 parallel lines like this or I draw a square. Don't make the cuts too deep, but also don't make them too shallow. The feeling will come with practice, so don't worry, either way it's still going to look great. Cover the lid, place the Dutch oven in the oven and reduce temperature to 230 degrees. Bake for 20 minutes. Once the time is up, remove the lid and keep baking for around 22 minutes more. Just watch it, and when you're happy with the color of the crust, it's going to be ready. It should be deep golden, just like this. And voila! The sourdough bread is ready. Now it's time to bake the second one, but first you need to reheat the oven and the Dutch oven. So place it in the oven, increase the temperature back to 260 degrees Celsius and wait for 10 minutes. Then take the Dutch oven out and bake the second loaf in exactly the same way as you did the first one. So that's it. You're now a competent and very successful sourdough bread baker. Now for the timings. There are 24 to 25 degrees in my apartment. I feed the starter around 9 a.m. I mix up the bread dough at between 3 and 4 p.m. I bulk ferment it until around between 8 and 9 p.m. and then shape and place it in the fridge for around 12 hours until the next morning. I have fresh bread at around 10, 11 a.m. the next morning. And it's priceless because I just generally have breakfast with it and it's great. If it's warmer where you are, you will need less time. If it's colder, you'll need more time. So adjust accordingly, but never follow times blindly. So I guess this is it for the tutorial, and now let's enjoy some shots of this magnificent sourdough bread. Look at the crust and the open crumb. I can't even begin to tell you how good it tastes. My favorite way to eat it is with butter, with homemade pesto sauce, or with any kind of cheese. Here I'm trying it with an Italian cheese called Robiola. I haven't had this cheese for years, and let me tell you, it was incredible with freshly baked bread. So happy baking, enjoy the process, learn to read the dough, use your intuition, and of course, watch the space for more sourdough recipes in the future. Thanks for watching, bye!